The city of Veyran was filled with light, color, and sound. Towers made of silver glass reached into the skies, and ships from hundreds of worlds came and went every day. The streets were always crowded with people, different species, different languages, and endless noise. But in the middle of that busy place, there was one girl who wanted nothing to do with it. Her name was Lyra. She was young, not more than 13 cycles old by the calendar of her people. Her species, the Veilari, were tall, thin, and known for their bright eyes that shimmered like crystal. They were a community-driven species. They loved festivals, dances, and the gathering of voices. But Lyra was different. She was an orphan. Her parents had been lost during a raid by outlaws years ago. Since then, she had been living in a large government shelter with many other children. The building was safe, the food was given on time, and the caretakers tried to look after everyone. But still, to Lyra, it felt like a cage of noise and fear. She had severe social anxiety. Whenever the other children laughed, played, or tried to speak with her, her chest tightened. Her throat would close and her hands would shake. Words refused to leave her mouth. The laughter of others, even if not cruel, felt like knives against her ears. She would run to the corner of the room, curl into herself, and hope no one looked at her. Many children called her strange. Some whispered that she was broken, that she was not really a Veilari anymore. Others ignored her completely. For them, she was like a shadow. Always there, but never part of their world. Every day, Lyra would sit in the same corner of the shelter's common room. She held a small pendant made of silver stone. It was the only thing left from her family. When she touched it, she remembered the warmth of her mother's hands and the deep voice of her father. Those memories were her only comfort. The city outside was alive, but she never joined it. Even the shelter's caretakers had stopped asking her to go outside with the other children. It was always the same. She would try to step into the sunlight, see the busy streets, and then her heart would beat so fast that she could hardly breathe. Her vision blurred, her legs shook, and she would run back inside. And so, Lyra stayed in her shadow. But things were changing in the city of Veyran. Humanity had arrived. The humans were new to this part of the galaxy. Their ships were small compared to the great empires, and their technology was not as advanced as the ancient powers. Yet they carried something different. Many aliens thought humans were odd, always smiling, always curious, always helping. Some called them weak, others called them reckless, but no one could deny that humans were spreading across the stars quickly. The shelter where Lyra lived had recently welcomed a group of human volunteers. They brought supplies, taught skills, and spent time with the orphans. The other children loved them. Humans laughed easily, told stories, and played games. Their strange accents and warm behavior made them popular, but Lyra stayed away from them, too. One of the volunteers was a young man named Elias. He had light brown hair, kind eyes, and a voice that was always gentle. He noticed Lyra from the first day. She never joined the games, never smiled, never spoke. She sat in her corner with her pendant, always watching but never coming closer. Elias did not push her. He did not ask her to join. Instead, he began sitting near her corner when he came to the shelter. He did not sit too close, just enough to show that he was there. He would read from his datapad, draw on his slate, or simply watch the other children play. Sometimes he would hum softly, a sound that was not too loud but somehow calming. Days passed like this. Lyra never spoke to him. She never even looked directly at him. But she noticed that he never forced her to talk. He never told her to move, never asked her why she stayed alone. He simply let her be. One evening, after the other children had eaten and gone to their sleeping quarters, Elias remained behind. He placed a small bag on the table and looked toward Lyra. "I'll bring something tomorrow," he said softly, even though he knew she might not answer. "Not for the others. Just for you." Lyra clutched her pendant tighter, her eyes flicking toward him for the first time. She did not speak, but her silence carried a question. Elias only smiled, then left the room. The next day, when the humans arrived, Elias carried a small container in his arms. The children gathered quickly, curious about what he had brought. He told them to wait, then walked past the crowd and toward Lyra's corner. Lyra shrank back, her chest tight, her body tense. But when Elias bent down and opened the container, something small, warm, and alive jumped out. It was a puppy. The creature was covered in soft golden fur. Its ears flopped as it ran, and its tail wagged so fast it looked like a blur. The puppy barked once, a sharp but cheerful sound, and ran straight toward Lyra. She froze. The puppy jumped into her lap without hesitation. Its small paws pressed against her arms, and its wet nose touched her cheek. Lyra's heart raced, but this time it was different. There was no fear in the beating of her chest. Instead, it was something new. Something warm. The puppy licked her hand. Lyra blinked. Slowly, with trembling fingers, she touched its fur. It was soft, alive, and real. The puppy did not demand words. It did not laugh at her silence. It only looked at her with big brown eyes full of joy, as if saying, "I am happy to see you." For the first time in years, Lyra felt her lips move. "Hello?" The word was small, broken, almost a whisper. But it was a word. The puppy barked again as if answering her and pushed its head into her hand. Elias stood a little distance away, watching. He did not speak. He only smiled. That evening, Lyra did something no one had seen her do before. She left her corner. She walked outside, the puppy running in circles around her feet. Her legs were weak, her body tense, but she did not turn back. The air outside smelled fresh. The sky was painted with the light of two suns setting together. For the first time, she looked at it without fear. The puppy barked and pulled at her sleeve with playful teeth, guiding her further down the steps, and Lyra followed. From a window above, some of the other orphans watched in silence. The girl who never spoke, who never moved, who hid like a shadow, was outside with a smile on her face. It was small, shy, fragile, but it was a smile. The next morning, the shelter was buzzing with whispers. The children could not stop talking about what they had seen the evening before. The quiet one went outside. She smiled. She even spoke. For the orphans, it was like a miracle. Lyra, the silent shadow, had stepped out into the open world. Some were curious, some were jealous, and some could not believe it. The caretakers, too, exchanged looks of surprise. They had tried for years to help Lyra, but nothing had worked. Yet suddenly she had walked outside, just because of a small animal. The puppy had stayed with her all night. She had refused to let it go, even when the caretakers told her to sleep. The little creature curled against her chest, and for the first time, Lyra slept peacefully. No nightmares, no shivering, no tears, only calm. When the humans came back the next day, the children ran to greet them. Elias entered last, carrying a small bag of food supplies. His eyes searched for Lyra. She was in her usual corner, but this time, she was not alone. The puppy was sitting proudly on her lap. Lyra stroked its fur gently. Her face still shy, but her posture different. She was not curled into herself. She sat straighter, her crystal blue eyes watching the room with quiet strength. One of the Valari boys laughed and pointed. "Look, she has a beast!" The puppy barked, wagging its tail at the sound, and the boy quickly stepped back. The other children giggled, but Elias raised his hand. "She's not holding a beast," Elias said calmly. "That's a puppy, and his name is Nova." The children repeated the word. "Nova, Nova," they said, amused by the human sound. Nova jumped down from Lyra's lap and began running around the room. The children tried to catch him, but he was too fast, darting between their legs. Lyra's lips curved into another small smile as she watched. One of the caretakers frowned. "Is it safe to bring such a creature here? It could cause trouble." Elias shook his head. "Nova is harmless. He just wants to play, and he seems to be helping someone who needed him most." The caretaker followed his gaze and sighed. "That girl. We tried everything. If this works, maybe we should not interfere." The day went on. Elias continued helping the other children with lessons, teaching them words in human language and showing them pictures of Earth. Some children laughed at the strange animals humans kept: cats, dogs, birds. Others asked questions about Earth's oceans and forests, but Elias noticed Lyra watching closely. She did not join the group, but her eyes followed every image of dogs. Her hand never left Nova's fur. At the end of the lesson, Elias walked toward her. He crouched down, his voice quiet. "Do you like him?" Lyra hesitated. Her throat was dry, her chest heavy. But then she whispered, "Yes." It was only one word. Yet to Elias it was more precious than all the noise in the room. He smiled warmly. "Then he's yours." Her eyes widened. She looked at him as if he had just given her a star. "Mine?" "Yes," Elias said gently. "Nova chooses you. You take care of him and he will take care of you." Lyra's hands shook. For years she had owned nothing but her pendant. Now suddenly she had something alive. something that looked at her as if she was the most important person in the world. Tears filled her eyes, but she quickly turned away, ashamed to cry. Elias pretended not to see. He only patted Nova's head. "He will give you strength, little one. You'll see." That evening, something remarkable happened. When the children were allowed to go outside to the courtyard, Lyra followed. She held Nova close at first, trembling at the sight of the crowd. The sound of laughter and chatter made her chest tighten, but Nova barked happily, wagging his tail, pulling her forward with his small paws. Step by step, she moved among the others. Some children stared. A few whispered. But for the first time, Lyra did not run back inside. She stood in the sunlight holding Nova and let the warmth touch her skin. Her breathing was shaky, but she stayed. Elias watched from a distance, his heart filled with pride. This was only the beginning, but it was a beginning that mattered. Over the next days, things began to change. Lyra started walking outside with Nova every morning. At first, she only went a few steps beyond the shelter door, then a little further. Each time, Nova led the way, barking at the sky, sniffing the ground, pulling her into the world. With him, the streets did not feel as terrifying. She still could not speak much. When people tried to talk to her, she hid behind Nova or whispered one or two words, but it was progress. One afternoon, Elias suggested a walk through the city market. Lyra froze at the idea. The market was the busiest place in Veyran, full of voices, smells, and movement. Normally, she would collapse from panic before reaching it, but Nova barked and tugged at her sleeve. His eyes were full of playful energy, as if daring her to be brave. "Just a few steps," Elias encouraged. "I'll be right here." And Nova too. With shaking hands, Lyra agreed. The moment she entered the market, her body tensed. Merchants shouted prices, alien spices filled the air, and strange animals called from cages. She felt the familiar panic rising, her throat closing, her heart racing. But then Nova barked and jumped in front of her, tail wagging. People turned to look, smiling at the cheerful puppy. The eyes that might have judged Lyra were now drawn to Nova's cuteness. No one stared at her. No one whispered. The fear slowly faded. Lyra took a step forward. Then another. She clutched Nova's leash tightly, but she kept moving. For the first time in her life, she walked through the marketplace without collapsing. Elias smiled. "See? You're stronger than you think." Her lips trembled, but a whisper escaped. "Nova makes me strong." The words touched Elias deeply. He nodded. "Yes, but the strength was always inside you. Nova just helps you find it." That night, as she lay in her bed, Nova curled against her, Lyra thought about the day. She remembered the colors of the market, the smell of baked bread, the sound of laughter that did not hurt her anymore. For the first time, she felt something new. Hope. She touched her pendant, then looked at the sleeping puppy. Her parents were gone, but maybe she was not alone anymore. Nova had found her. Lyra's days slowly began to change. The silent shadow who once sat in the corner was now seen walking outside with a golden puppy at her side. Every morning, Nova barked happily until she left the shelter with him. His energy gave her courage, his small steps pulled her forward, and his wagging tail reminded her that the world was not always dangerous. The other children noticed. At first, they only whispered. Some pointed and laughed, saying she needed a beast to protect her. Others watched with quiet wonder. Slowly, a few began to approach. They wanted to pet Nova. They wanted to play with him. And because Nova loved everyone, he wagged his tail and jumped into their arms. Lyra's chest tightened every time strangers came close. But when she saw Nova happy, her fear softened. She allowed the children to play with him. Though she stayed quiet, watching closely. She still could not join in their games, but she no longer ran away. One afternoon, a little Veilari girl came to her with wide eyes. "Can I touch him?" the child asked. Lyra's throat went dry. Words caught in her chest. But then she looked at Nova, who barked softly, wagging his tail at the girl. Lyra swallowed hard and whispered, "Yes." The girl smiled and petted Nova's head. Lyra did not know why, but something in her heart felt lighter. She had spoken. She had shared, and it had not hurt. Elias noticed all of this. Every day, he watched the bond between Lyra and Nova grow stronger. She was still quiet, still shy, but there was change in her. Her steps were steadier. Her eyes no longer always lowered. She was beginning to connect. One day, Elias brought a small ball from Earth. It was bright red and soft enough for a puppy to bite. He rolled it across the floor and Nova chased it at once, barking with joy. The other children laughed and joined the game, tossing the ball for Nova to catch. Lyra sat in her corner, watching nervously. Elias walked over to her, holding the ball out. "Would you like to try?" Her hands shook. She wanted to say no. She wanted to hide. But Nova ran back to her, the ball in his mouth, his tail wagging. He dropped it at her feet, looking up with eager eyes. Slowly, she picked it up. Her hand trembled as she threw the ball. It bounced across the floor and Nova ran after it, barking. The children clapped and cheered. Lyra blinked, her heart racing. But this time it was not fear. It was excitement. She threw it again, a little stronger, and Nova chased it once more. Soon the whole room echoed with laughter, hers included. It was the first time anyone had ever heard Lyra laugh. That night she sat on her bed, petting Nova as he curled against her. Her chest felt light, almost strange. She touched her pendant and whispered softly, "I laughed, Mother." "Father." I laughed again. The next morning, Elias found her waiting by the door with Nova. He raised his eyebrows. "Going somewhere?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Outside." Together they walked through the city. Lyra stayed close to Elias, her eyes darting nervously at the busy streets. But with Nova at her side, she did not run back. Elias showed her the gardens where flowers from many worlds grew together. He showed her the tall towers shining like crystal under the sun, and slowly she began to speak. At first it was only short words. Pretty, scary, loud, but each word was progress. Each whisper was a step toward the world. Elias never forced her. He never asked more than she could give. He simply walked with her, answering her whispers with patience. "Yes, the flowers are pretty. Yes, the streets are loud." Sometimes he told her stories of Earth. He spoke of forests filled with green leaves, oceans that stretched forever, and skies where birds soared freely. Lyra listened with wide eyes. "On Earth," Elias said one evening, "dogs like Nova are everywhere. They live with families. They protect children. They give love even when no one else will. They don't care if you're weak or strong or different. To them, you're just family." Lyra lowered her eyes to Nova, who was chewing happily on a stick. She whispered, "Family." The word felt strange on her tongue, painful but also warm. Days turned into weeks. Lyra's progress grew slowly but surely. She began eating meals in the common room instead of alone. She whispered greetings to the caretakers. Once, when a younger orphan cried in fear during a storm, Lyra sat beside them, letting Nova comfort the child. The caretakers were astonished. "She is changing," they said. "She is healing." But Lyra knew it was not only healing. It was something more. Nova gave her courage, yes, but Elias gave her something else. Patience and safety. He never mocked her. He never pushed her too far. He believed in her even when she doubted herself. Slowly, she began to look forward to his visits as much as Nova's wagging tail. One evening, Elias invited her to walk in the city square. It was busier than the market, filled with lights and music. Lyra froze at the sight, her breathing heavy. Her body begged her to run, but Nova barked, tugging at the leash. Elias placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "We don't have to go far. Just one step at a time. I'm here. Nova's here. You're not alone." Lyra closed her eyes, holding Nova close. Her chest hurt, but she remembered the laughter of the children, the flowers in the gardens, the soft voice of Elias. Slowly, she took a step forward. The lights shone brighter. The music played louder. But she stayed. She whispered, almost too soft to hear. "Not alone." Elias smiled. "That's right. Not alone." For the first time, Lyra began to believe it. The Festival of Lights came to Varen. Every year, the city celebrated the twin suns with lanterns, music, and dancing. The streets glowed with warm colors, and ships from distant worlds hovered above to watch the spectacle. For most Velari children, it was a day of excitement and joy. For Lyra, it was a day of fear. The noise, the movement, the crowds, it all threatened to swallow her. She wanted to stay in her corner, to hide with Nova at her side. But Elias had other plans. "You have come so far," he said softly, kneeling to meet her eyes. "Today you can see the festival. You don't have to join. Just watch. And if it becomes too much, we'll go home. Nova and I will be with you." Lyra clutched Nova's leash tightly. She looked at the swirling crowds, the bright lanterns, and felt panic rise in her chest. But she also remembered something else. Nova's soft bark, Elias's gentle voice, and the small victories of the last weeks. She nodded slowly. Step by step, they entered the streets. The festival was more magnificent than she had imagined. Lanterns floated like stars. Colors danced across the buildings, and music echoed through every corner. Children laughed, couples held hands, and merchants called out with cheerful voices. Lyra froze at first, her heart racing. She felt as though the world was pressing in on her. But Nova nudged her hand and barked gently. His small eyes told her, "You can do this." With trembling legs, she moved forward. Each step was hard, each sound overwhelming. But Elias stayed by her side, and Nova ran ahead, leading her forward, showing her that nothing was truly dangerous. Then suddenly chaos erupted. A fire broke out in one of the market stalls. Smoke billowed, flames leaped into the sky, and people began to scream. The crowd panicked, pushing and shoving to get away from the danger. Lyra froze, her chest tight, her body ready to collapse. Nova barked loudly, jumping in front of her, protecting her from the crowd. But then she noticed the younger orphans nearby, some of whom were crying and unable to move. They were trapped between the fire and the crowd. Her first instinct was fear. She wanted to run, but then something inside her shifted. She looked at Nova, who barked again as if urging her to act, and she saw the children, scared, helpless, waiting for someone to guide them. Lyra felt a surge of determination. She could not let them suffer. "Follow me," she whispered, her voice shaking but clear. Elias's eyes widened. "Lyra, you can do this?" I can try," she said. With Nova leading the way, she moved toward the trapped children. She held Nova's leash in one hand and reached out to guide the frightened Vaylari in the other. Step by step, she led them away from the flames, her heart pounding in her chest. The smoke burned her eyes, the shouting filled her ears, but she did not stop. She focused on the children and Nova, letting nothing else touch her. Elias followed close behind, ready to help if she faltered. The other humans began assisting too, forming a line to guide more children to safety. But it was Lyra who led the first group, her courage shining in the middle of chaos. When they reached a safe space, Lyra dropped to her knees, gasping for air. Nova leaped into her arms, barking happily as if praising her bravery. The children she had guided stared at her with wide eyes, awe and gratitude mixing in their gaze. "You saved us," one of the youngest whispered. Lyra looked down, overwhelmed. Her body shook and tears ran down her cheeks. I only," she tried to say, but words failed her. Elias knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "No," he said softly. "You did it. You were brave. You acted when no one else could. That's real courage." The caretakers arrived, bringing blankets and calming the frightened children. They looked at Lyra with new eyes, respect, wonder, and pride. The girl who once hid in corners, who never spoke, had saved lives. That night, after the festival had ended, Lyra sat on her bed, Nova curled against her chest. Her body was exhausted, but her mind was alive with a new feeling. She had faced fear. She had acted despite it, and she had helped others. Elias entered quietly, carrying a small tray of food. "You're a hero today," he said gently, setting it beside her. "You don't need to hide anymore." Lyra shook her head. I'm still scared." "Yes," Elias agreed. "But bravery is not the absence of fear. It is acting even when you are afraid." She nodded slowly. Nova licked her face and she laughed softly. The sound was shaky but real. She had not laughed like this before. Over the next few days, the city treated her differently. Children looked at her with admiration. Adults whispered about the girl who led others to safety during the fire. Even the humans were impressed by her courage. But Lyra did not let it change her. She still had fears. She still needed Nova by her side. She still needed Elias's gentle guidance. But something had shifted deep inside her. She realized that she was not a shadow anymore. She was someone who could act. Someone who could be brave. Someone who could face the world step by step with the right support. And she had learned something else. Strength was not just inside her. It could come from love, from friendship, from trust. Nova had given her courage when she had none. Elias had given her patience and safety. Together they had helped her find a spark she never knew existed. Lyra held Nova close, her eyes shining. "Thank you," she whispered. I think I can be strong, Elias smiled. You already are. That night, as the city slept under the twin suns, Lyra looked out the window. She saw the glowing lanterns still floating in the sky, the streets calm after the festival, and the lights of distant ships twinkling like stars. For the first time, she felt that she belonged, not just in the shelter, not just in her corner, but in the world. And she knew that whatever challenges came next, she would not face them alone. Nova would be with her. Elias would be with her. And she would find her own courage step by step, day by day. The quiet shadow of the past had broken. A new light had emerged, one that would grow brighter with each passing day. The days after the festival were calm, yet alive with change. Lyra no longer hid in corners. She walked through the shelter with Nova at her side, her head held a little higher, her steps a little firmer. Her voice, though still soft, had begun to speak more freely. Words that once got stuck in her throat now came in small, deliberate phrases. The other children noticed the difference. Some smiled at her when she passed. Others came closer to play with Nova, and sometimes they even asked her to join them. She always hesitated, but now she said yes more often. It was slow progress, but it was progress nonetheless. Elias watched quietly, pride swelling in his chest. He had seen her fear, her pain, and the way she had shut herself away from the world. But now he saw her strength, her courage, and most importantly, her heart opening. One morning, a new group of young Velari arrived at the shelter. They were frightened, shy, and wary, just like Lyra had been when she first came. She watched them, remembering herself. Nova barked, wagging his tail, and ran toward the newcomers. Lyra stepped forward, hesitating at first. But then she extended her hand toward a little girl who was hiding behind a crate. "Hi," Lyra whispered. I'm Lyra. This is Nova." The girl blinked, unsure what to do. She had never met a Velari who smiled like that, who spoke gently, who seemed safe. She reached out, touching Nova's fur, and the puppy licked her hand happily. Lyra felt a warmth spread through her chest. She remembered the days when she had been that frightened child, and now she could be the one to help. Over the next weeks, Lyra began spending more time with the younger children. She guided them through games, taught them small words, and comforted them when they were afraid. Nova was always by her side, helping her connect with the children and making them feel safe. The caretakers were amazed. "She is changing everything," one whispered. "The quiet shadow is now a light." Lyra smiled softly, but she did not boast. She only focused on the children, helping them in the way she had once been helped. One day, Elias approached her with a small request. "There's a city event next week, a gathering for all the children and volunteers. Would you like to go?" Lyra's chest tightened. Large gatherings still made her nervous, but she remembered the festival, remembered guiding the frightened children, remembered Nova and Elias standing by her side. I can try," she said. Elias smiled warmly. "That's all I ask." The day of the gathering arrived. Children from all over the city were present, laughing, playing, and exploring the colorful stalls. Lyra held Nova's leash tightly, taking slow, careful steps. Her legs shook at first, her heart raced, but she kept moving. Nova barked happily, nudging her forward. She glanced at Elias, who nodded encouragingly. And then, something remarkable happened. A small boy tripped near a table, his food spilling onto the ground. He began to cry, and the crowd around him ignored him, caught up in their own activities. Without hesitation, Lyra stepped forward. She knelt beside him, speaking softly. "It's okay," she said. "Don't cry. Nova and I will help you." The boy looked up at her, eyes wide. Lyra held out her hand and he took it. Nova wagged his tail, licking the boy's cheek. Slowly he calmed down, a small smile forming on his face. Others began to notice. The children watched Lyra with awe, whispering to each other. She helped him. She's brave. She's strong. Lyra felt something new inside her. It was not fear. It was not panic. It was pride, but not the kind that sought attention. It was the pride of knowing that she could make a difference, that she could act, that she could bring light to others just as she had once received light from a small human and a puppy. Elias came closer, smiling proudly. "You see? You're inspiring them." Lyra glanced around. Children who were once too shy to speak now laughed and played, encouraged by her presence. Nova ran between them, barking happily, spreading joy. Lyra realized that her own courage had given them courage. Her small steps into the world had created ripples that were spreading. That night she sat on her bed, Nova curled against her. She touched her pendant, then whispered softly, I am not alone. I am not broken. I can be strong. Elias entered quietly, holding a small tray with her favorite food. You've come so far, Lyra, he said. You've faced fear, helped others, and grown stronger. I think your parents would be proud. Lyra looked at him, tears brimming in her eyes. I feel like they are watching me, she whispered. And they are happy I'm not hiding anymore. Elias knelt beside her. They are happy, and so am I. Nova is happy too. The puppy wagged his tail, nuzzling Lyra's face. She laughed softly, a pure, gentle sound that filled the room with warmth. Over the next weeks, Lyra's life continued to change. She began to explore the city more, sometimes alone with Nova, sometimes with Elias. She visited the gardens, the markets, and the parks. She even began speaking more openly with the other children, guiding them, comforting them, and helping them find small joys in life. The city began to recognize her. She was no longer the quiet shadow. She was the girl who had faced fear and found courage. The humans were amazed by her resilience, the Velari were inspired, and the other children saw a new path forward. One evening, as the twin suns set over the city, Lyra stood on the balcony of the shelter. Nova sat at her feet and Elias stood nearby. She watched the glowing lanterns floating into the sky, the streets filled with light and laughter, and felt a deep sense of belonging. I never thought I could be happy like this, she whispered to Nova. He barked softly, as if answering, you can. And I never thought I could help others, she continued. But now I know. I can. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. You always could. You just needed a little help to find it. Lyra smiled, looking at the city around her. She had once been a child who hid in fear, a shadow in a world too bright and loud. But now she had found strength in love, courage in friendship, and hope in simple acts of kindness. The HFY moment was clear. Humanity, through Elias and Nova, had shown that empathy, patience, and care could change lives. Advanced technology or power could not have reached Lyra's heart. Only compassion and trust had done it. And in that moment, Lyra understood something deeper. She did not just belong to the city. She belonged to a new world. A world that had given her love when she had none. A world where even the smallest act, a human giving a puppy, could ignite courage, change a life, and inspire others to follow. As the night grew darker and the lanterns glowed like stars, Lyra whispered one last time, her voice soft but steady. I am not alone. I am loved. I am strong. And I will help others too. Nova barked. Elias smiled, and the city around them seemed to shine a little brighter. The quiet shadow had transformed into a light that would continue to grow, touch lives, and shine for all who needed hope. The journey was not over, but Lyra knew one thing for certain. She had found her place in the world, and for the first time in her life she truly felt free.